People talk a lot about attention to detail, and it's a critical soft skill for most jobs. However, not much is said about how people can develop this skill. Now, if you're an entry-level tech professional or a freelancer, and you've gotten this feedback from colleagues, or you've just noticed that your own project or your own deliverables tend to have a longer review cycle, then this video is for you. I'm going to share my perspective about attention to detail and tips for how you can build attention to detail and help you deliver high-quality work. And if you stay to the end, I have a hack at the end of this video that any entry-level professional or graduate can actually use to build their attention to detail without a mentor or a manager reviewing their work. So first, attention to detail is an acquired taste of quality. It is investing the time, knowledge, and effort required to take work from good enough to great. And because it is bounded by time, resources, and expectations, it can be subjective. It's easy to know when work is bad. It's easy to know when a deliverable is bad. But most times for entry-level professionals, it is hard to know if you've done enough work to get your deliverable to a point where it can earn a chef kiss. So attention to detail is acquired taste, which means it is fundamentally developed through experience. Detail is the most important thing in attention to detail. And knowing what detail is good enough is best acquired through observation, because in most cases, it is nuance based on the time, resources, and expectations of the organization or of your client or the specific context that you're in. And to improve your attention to detail, your priority should be to work closely with someone who has the quality of work that you desire, to observe their mental model and processes. And to be honest, if you stop watching this video right now and follow through with this, I assure you that your attention to detail and the quality of your work will improve drastically over a period of time. However, stay with me so you know the insights to glean as you observe someone that has the same quality of work that you admire. So it all starts with the expectation. It all starts with the definition of done. In my experience, people who tend to do low quality work tend to have a very simplistic view of the complexity of the work. They tend to oversimplify the work. And that's the reason why in software engineering, we tend to see that senior engineers often respond to problems with "it depends," because they are aware of the different nuances and how expectation, time, and resources can affect the solution to the problem and can affect the quality of the work they tend to deliver. The carpenter, the artisan who does a bad job oftentimes has not internalized why the geometry and why the edges are important to the clients giving them the work. And so the first thing you want to observe when you spend time working with a person who is more experienced is their approach to expectations. And as you observe and spend time with a more experienced person, one of the things you want to pay attention to is how they internalize and redocument expectations. So oftentimes clients and stakeholders present to us a problem that they want us to solve, or you show an artisan the shoe you want the person to make. The difference between the more experienced artisan and the less experienced artisan, or the difference between an artisan that pays attention to detail and delivers high quality work, is how they approach the expectation, how they internalize it, how they redocument it. So you see it in the questions they ask the stakeholders, and you need to observe why they're asking those questions. What are the insights they're trying to glean from their clients, and how do they translate those expectations to subtasks, and how are they also prioritizing work? How are they breaking the expectations down to subtasks, and how are they internalizing the expectations of their stakeholders and defining their own definition of a ready-to-ship product, or a ready-to-deliver show to the client, or their own definition of what needs to be done to be able to deliver the show. For instance, one of the things you observe is that you're talking to a well-experienced carpenter who makes very good furnitures. When you show them a design, or when you show them your expectation, and so they tend to approach the work with the level of respect that the work deserves. So they tend to look at the furniture from the dimensions, trying to figure out what the client is expecting, what the client expects them to deliver. They're looking at the edges, they're looking for the complications. They're asking the client, oh, is this important to you? Do you want it to come out like this? Do you want it to come out like this? When it comes out like this, is it the kind of button you want? Is it the kind of drawer you want? So they are asking specific questions because they're trying to distill the client's big picture down into subtasks. And so within your organization, you need to pay attention to how experienced people distill expectations from stakeholders down to subtasks through the way they ask questions, and figure out why they're asking those specific questions and what are the specific insights that they're trying to glean from the stakeholders. As I become a much more experienced engineer, I've become more comfortable with saying, hey, I need some of this to ship this. I've become much more comfortable with asking for more time to increase the quality of my work. I've become much more comfortable with going to startup and saying, yeah, so I started working on this, but I noticed this, and I'm going to spend more time to look into this. I'm investigating this, I'm doing some research with this and stuff like that. All because I have now come to understand that the quality of my work is way more important than the quantity of work I deliver. Obviously, I need to find the balance between quality and quantity. And like I said initially, when it comes to attention to detail, there are three things you need to consider, which is the time, the resources available to you, and the expectations of your stakeholders. So each of these three things are the constraints that you have to work with when you're talking about attention to detail. However, the difference between me right now and a few years ago was that a few years ago, I was indexing more on shipping more stuff. So I was indexing more on doing a lot more work than on the quality of the work I did. And that's the reason why I ended up shipping mostly buggy stuff. So my advice and recommendation, and this is something you will notice as you observe people who do high quality work within your organization, is that they have enough focus time and they do less multitasking. So let me repeat this again. They have enough focus time on the specific work that they need to deliver, on the things that are priority to them, and they do less multitasking. And so here's my recommendation if right now you feel that the quality of your work is bad. So the first thing I would say is this: reduce the number of stuff you work on at the time by at least 25% right now. Now, the second thing is that try your best to ensure that you're always communicating changes in deadline as you're working on projects. So either you're a freelancer or you're an entry-level professional, you work in tech, whatever role that you have right now, when you're working on a project and you notice that there are things changing or there are things that may potentially impact you to meet the deadline that you had initially agreed on, try your best to proactively communicate that to your clients or to your stakeholders, because that helps you to reduce pressure from you, and it ensures that you still have the time and the focus required for you to invest in delivering high quality work. And I also recommend that you work with your stakeholders to figure out a right benchmark between the quantity of work you need to deliver and the quality of work you need to deliver. So if you're in a position where you have not built that habit where you can actually spot stuff that are wrong easily, then you need to speak with your stakeholders so that you can earn yourself some time and reduce the amount of work that you have to do within a deadline, so that you have more time to work on quality and you have more time to review your work before you ship them or you present them for review outside your team or with your client and stuff. So a lot of people assume that you get good at making great work by observing great work. And I think there is a lot of merit to that. However, I feel that people get more by observing the process that led to great work, and especially by looking at the decisions that led to rejecting good work. Now, understand the difference I'm painting here. So attention to detail, like I said initially, is the time and effort required to take a work from just being a good work to being a great work. So it's the time, effort, and knowledge required to go from this is good enough to this is great. It's time and effort required to go from this is good enough to this is chef kiss. And so for me, the easiest way to understand how you go from this to this is to observe the process of rejecting good enough and replacing good enough for, oh, this is great. So replacing this is good enough for, no, we can make changes to this and make this great. And I'll give you a typical example. When a final draft of a strategy document or proposal is shared within an organization by the business team, when you read that final draft, you're seeing chef kiss. So you're seeing the best possible work that the business development team can release. However, you're just seeing that. You don't know the ideas they rejected. You don't know the thoughts, the stuff they considered that made them realize that this option is better than that option. And for me, the thought patterns and mental models required for you to reject good work, required for you to know which good work should be rejected for you to attain greatness, is important to develop attention to detail. And for me, my strategy using the document example is that when I'm presented with such a document, one of the things I try and do is I open the resolved comments and I see the mental models, the conversations, the decisions, the things that were considered to go from this to this final statement or this final paragraph that I'm in awe of, because that process, those conversations, the stuff that were rejected to get to this place is what is essential. That's the skill I need to develop. That is the attention to detail that I am trying to attain. And so my recommendation is that you get comfortable with reading the reviews of other people's work, and also get comfortable with reading reviews of experts on your work. And so you need to go behind the curtain to see all the work that needed to be done to get it from a storyboard to a finished movie that you love and that you're in awe of. All right, so I promised a hack for graduates or entry-level professionals who are not in a position where they can use the tips I've shared. So you're not in a position where you have somebody whose quality of work you respect and you can have access to them, to observe them, and to get training from them. And so this is a hack that you can use. Imitate high-quality work out there. So you're a front-end designer, you're a product designer, whatever the case may be, you're studying your skill, you're even a software engineer, and you're trying to build stuff. So one of the things you could do is that you can go online and find a sample project of someone you respect. Essentially, just look for a big company or a big organization and maybe take like their front end page, maybe take like a library or even a tutorial where somebody implemented stuff. And you spend enough time digesting and understanding what the person has done. So if it's like a visual design, you spend time taking low quality screenshots, emphasis on low quality screenshots of the web page. You spend enough time looking at the web page, interacting with the page. Try your best to ensure that it's small and minute work so you don't have to spend a lot of time working on this. And so you take that and then you go home, you digest it, you write your definition of the expectations, what you think you need to do to implement it, and then you forget about the work. And then you try your best to imitate it based on the definition or based on the brief that you have written. Your idea is that you want to achieve the same thing that you saw that led to the brief. The idea is this: stakeholders most times have a picture of what they want, which is the website you're seeing or the project or the tutorial and stuff, but they communicate to you a brief. It is the brief that you have to work with to achieve their expectation, which is the definition of attention to detail. So you find something online, you distill it down into a brief, you forget about the stuff online, you go home, you try your best to implement it based on the brief, then you go back and compare what you did based on the initial expectation. And the idea is that you're trying to find a one-to-one mapping between what you've done. So for instance, you're looking at the places where you don't have margins, and you're looking at the animations and stuff that they did here and stuff like that. And so the main thing that you're trying to pay attention to is the reason why you did X, but they did 10X. So you're trying to figure out why when you were implementing this, you only stopped at this point, and then you see them go beyond this point. And so you know that, oh, okay, so at this point I stopped here, but these guys went 10X more. At this point I went 10X, but these guys came down here and stuff. And so you can see the differences between your own decision-making process and the decision-making process of experts. And the more you keep doing this, the more you keep trying your best to imitate work out there, the closer you get to doing good work. Emphasis on imitating. You're not trying your best to make changes or to do it in your own way, because when you start tweaking it and you start doing things in your own way, you divert a bit from the standard and it becomes harder for you to find a one-to-one mapping. And so, for instance, if you're doing this with a website, try your best to imitate the same thing, the font, everything there, because the closer you are with the imitation, the easier it is for you to find that one-on-one mapping and for you to assess if your work is up to standard or up to par with what the industry expects. All right, friends, I hope this was helpful and brings you closer to delivering high-quality work. If you have questions, drop them as comments and I'll respond to them. I'm Ayomide Aribede. I help tech professionals build thriving careers. See you next time.